Good morning, everyone. It is late morning on Saturday, and this is Dr. Garrett Cush. Um, and I thought I would come on live today and do a couple little informational sessions on you know some things to do with our health. So I came up with this analogy that you know. Our health is very similar to when we invest in our finances. So I've shared it with a couple of people, and they were, you know, interested in it, and they thought it was a great analogy of how to look at our health, and then started to grow from there. And I started to think about my own life and how it didn't, hit, paralleled the same type of concept. So I thought I would take an opportunity to share that with you guys. As you are all in, or most should be in, our consciously created transformation body mind soul group. Just by the title, you can tell that it's not just about weight loss, it's not just about your body, it's also about your mind. It's about habits related to being healthy. And so all that is going to get shared. And as I said, today we're going to touch on this cool little concept. If you are here in the group, please, go ahead and comment in the comments section and let me know you're here, even maybe where you're from. You may have to allow certain apps to be able to see you so that you can comment. But I let a few people kind of straggle, and maybe you can share why you're here too, like, why have you come to this group? What are you looking to accomplish? What, maybe even what your goals are, because one of the most important things when it comes to, any part of your life, the goal has to be really strong. You have to really, want to, changes, and you really have to want something in order for all those necessary components for you to be successful to take form. So what is this whole concept of health as an investment? First of all, why are you guys here? Some of you, may have poor health. You might be sick. You might be dealing with some conditions that have been diagnosed. Some people may have problems with their weight. They may be overweight or underweight. They may have difficulty losing weight. You could be the yo-yo dieter, the yo-yo weight loss, even yo-yo health in general. Maybe some of you are here and you just think you can do better. You're at a certain level. You're doing well with your health, but you know that you can improve and get even better at that. And then some of you might be here because of, enhancing performance and taking it to the extreme, or getting that little bit extra out of you, your body, and your health. So for all of you, that's what this is all about. Each one of those individuals can benefit from this information and from some of the stuff that we're going to share with you. So the first question I asked, so how does knowing this idea of health as an investment, how is that gonna help you? Well, it's gonna help take the mystery out of good health, understanding that it's very similar to other areas of our life. In other words, if you want to improve your finances, if you want to improve your relationships, if you want to improve your earning, it takes the same concept. So it's going to take the mystery out of good health. It simplifies it. A lot of us, when we look at health, everything from losing weight to, improving our diets, we think it's so complex. In actual fact, it's quite simple. We tend to overcomplicate things as a species. So this is about simplifying, going back to basics in general. So, and then finally, the last part, this whole concept of investing, or your health being like an investment, is the application of it. Because the ideas are simple, they're easily applied. And so, by the end of this, I'm hoping you're going to get some information about what you can do, about changes you can make, maybe some awareness about how you can improve your own habits and your own health, just by what you hear here. So So what is this idea of health as an investment? So I'm going to share with you my story because I think it'll give you a little bit of a clear idea of what I'm talking about. So I grew up, I was born in the 70s, early 70s. Yes, that ages me, I know. But I grew up playing. I grew up playing outside all the time. For those of you from that generation, we spent a lot of time outside. We didn't have, you know, game consoles like we do now. We don't have cell phones. We didn't have iPads, things like that, at least not like they are today. And so we played. We were out, before school, after school. And then we had formal activities that we took part in, like soccer, football, hockey, similar to here. But the idea here is that during our time where we weren't in formal play, we were playing on our own. We were, being athletes, being kids and playing on, climbing trees and playgrounds. In other words, we were just living our lives as kids were, as active kids were. I was extremely active. I loved playing. I was rarely in the house. If I was playing in the house, little minor games and things like that. So I was an active kid, and I always enjoyed the experience of, competition and trying to accomplish more and do better at these physical activities. So as a child, I grew up that way all through elementary school, and then I started playing every organized sport you could think of. Except for hockey. We had three brothers. It's an expensive sport, so we never tinkered with the hockey, but we played every other sport that I can possibly imagine. And then at schools, we played little minor games. I had a group of buddies, and that's all we did. We made a game out of little bouncy rubber balls just to get ourselves active and to compete, and things like that. So that was my early childhood. And then I went into, like I said, organized sport, and soccer became my sport. It wasn't so much that it was my favorite sport. It was my joy was just to play, and soccer seemed to be something that I could fit into my life, or that fit into my life with my parents. And so I continued there, and I always pushed hard, and I always practiced every day. So I went from playing at school to playing after school to going to soccer practice to coming home, right? And then continuing like that day in and day out. As I grew older, I became even better at playing, and so my training got harder. It got more physical. It got focused. I started to push more. My eating habits became a little bit more healthy, a little bit more focused towards understanding energies and proteins and carbohydrates and fats. I tinkered with those types of things, so I continued with that, and that was my interest. My interest became a lot of that stuff. So as I got into university, same things happened, and then I went into, right before I was about to go to chiropractic college, I ended up with the Canadian national soccer team. And as I'd grown up through that training and through that organization, from when I was young, I was selected to play there early, and so that training became deeper and more often. Now I was formally training and I was playing, and I continued. And then just before I went into university, into chiropractic college, I was selected for the national team, and that prompted my exit into Europe for some professional sport. And at that level, it's 7 days a week, multiple times a week. I loved the gym, so I was in the gym as a pro athlete a lot. Back at that time, it wasn't a big thing, especially in Europe playing soccer. So I was in the gym a lot. I was eating well. I was eating a lot. Wasn't really thinking about heavily about what I ate, simply because a lot of this had now become habitual. So I did eat quite well, but I still, and have always to this day, been the type that, enjoys my McDonald's or the beer or the, those little things that everyone kind of has of their own. So I did that too. So once my professional career came to an end, I was about 28 years old, and an injury led to that, as well as, just a realization that I wanted to do something different. And that was to become a chiropractor. So I went to chiropractic college, and I went from 7 days a week training multiple times a day to zero, to nothing, to sitting behind a desk for about 3 hours. And this was quite interesting to me, because I'll share with you how that had such a profound understanding in my mind about health. But I went from training 7 days a week to absolutely nothing but sitting behind a desk for about 12 hours. So that was for the next 3 years. And then I came home and opened up practice, and I've been working there since, and moving into different roles. So that's kind of how my life goes. Now, I wanted to tell you that just to share with you how this became a very clear understanding to me how, your health is no different than finances. In other words, there's an investment that you're making. So go back and we'll kind of walk through this as how it, how my life kind of relates to this model of investing. And so when I started young, I was playing all the time. So I was investing in my health. Okay. So I started, working hard without even really any type of sacrifice, right? Like I started to play. It became a part of my life. It was day in and day out. And as a child, you don't think too much about the physical aspects other than having fun. And so I did that, and I started really early, like, the day I was born, I pretty much was active. So I continued that activity. And because I had the interest in it, it continued throughout my entire life. And so as I grew older, my activity just became more and more advanced. So I put a little bit more focus on my health. I put more of my time into, playing, into eating, into being in the gym, into resting, into understanding stress. So I did a lot of that. And then, as it went on, it just got more and more and a bigger part of my life. And so in essence, what I was doing is I was just investing, even more of my time into my health. And so if you think about money in the same concept, right? When you start early, right, you can start to build that investment or that pool of money quicker and starts to grow. Now, what are you doing when you start early is you're starting this ingraining a habit. At a young age, your brain is quite plastic, and your neurology and your neural networks are quite plastic, and they're always pruning and growing. And so the more you do this habit, right, the more that neural network gets ingrained in the brain, in the mind, and then you start firing that more automatically. So the habit becomes automatic. So the investing in money when you start younger, that investment becomes habitual. So it becomes part of your life. You don't even have to think about it anymore. So you just keep putting parts of your paycheck, into your investment. Well, the health is the same way. So I started young, and I just kept adding to it. And then all of a sudden I kept adding more to it. So as I started earning more, right? So I started earning more money, a bigger absolute amount was going into my investment, right? And so we bring me into my late 20s, and I decided to go to chiropractic college. Well, now my investment took a smaller component of my life. In other words, I wasn't contributing the majority of my time to my health, at least not my physical health. So my exercise decreased. My food was okay. It was still not too bad. My mindset was focused on my books. I got very, very, very focused and very, very time consuming in my schooling. So my focus on my health, my working out, all of that activity just died right down to nothing. And so just like when you're investing, right? Let's say that, at one point you want to dip into that investment, or you want to stop putting money into it, is a better way to put it, or put less into it. You now have a pretty big investment. So by putting little bits in, you're still contributing, but your investment may be stagnant or even dwindle a bit because the amount in isn't as big as the amount out. So I realized that that's an interesting analogy in that your health is identical, right? So as soon as I went to cold turkey, basically nothing focused on my health heavily, the one thing I realized or I felt was the profound effects of physical effects on my body. So I started to develop headaches, which I'd never had in my entire life other than being self-induced. But I never had headaches. As soon as I stopped and I was at a desk so long, my postures and positions, which I never thought about, started to cause my body to become achy. My low back was achy. continued to make it worse. My headaches were there. I experienced, just feelings of frustration and stress. And so I didn't really understand what was happening, other than the fact that it was the first time in my life that what I wasn't doing was exercising. So these effects continued, and I realized what I was doing. Now I realize is I was dipping into that investment. So the investment was taking a little bit of a hit. So if you can appreciate how that correlates to investing in finances, here's a couple and a few tips you can take from that, right? Investing early is the key. So just like when you invest your money early, when you start when you're young, as I said earlier, that investment, that habit, starting it early, it's not so much that you're earning a lot amount or you're creating this massive pool right away, but what you're doing is you're instilling the habitual pattern into your brain, like I said, to do that consistently. And that becomes a daily routine, to a weekly routine, to a monthly, to yearly. And then it just becomes so habitual that you actually can't even stop it. You just keep thinking about it. So the earlier you start, the quicker your investment grows, right? The other thing is the consistency, right? So you become consistent in that. So just like, money, when it becomes habitual, your health is the same way. So if you start early, right, your health is in a good place early in your life. What that does is that teaches your body all of the habitual patterns that are automatic that you don't even think about with respect to health. So things like metabolism. People talk about, oh, my metabolism's slow. It doesn't burn as fast. I don't have as much muscle and things like that. Well, the habitual patterning that works on metabolism is you can't consciously change that metabolism, at least not as much as we know right now. But the point is that metabolic speed is related to the habitual patterns that are ingrained inside the autonomic processes of the body and the autonomic control of the body. So that can start from an early age. So the earlier you start that habitual pattern, right, becomes ingrained and automatic. So your metabolism speeds up. All of your processing speeds up in your body. All of the biology speeds up in the body, right? The consistency, right? The more consistent you are with your financial contribution to your investment, right, the larger it grows. And here's an interesting point, even in the hard times, right, when it's getting difficult and maybe you're not earning as much, if you continue to contribute, you're still growing and you're still advancing that investment. And it doesn't take a lot to continue it to grow. So consistency is a key, and that goes back to the neural network and the habitual patterns. The more habitual it comes, the more you can stick to the consistency, right? And just like investments, your health is no different. The more consistent you are with the health, right, the better the health is, right? The faster it grows, the faster it gets better, right? And even in hard times, this is interesting, but even in the hard times when you're like, I don't want to get up, I don't want to exercise, you want to fall back into the good food, you want to do things like that, right? During those hard times, those are the times you really have to, you want to fall back on good habits, and those good habits being, I got to work out, got to do it. And it's a little easier to be consistent in hard times when you've done it over the years. Interesting analogy as well with money is this concept of diversification. So we often hear from investment advisors to diversify, right? Diversify your investments, do different things. Well, health's no different, right? You can diversify your focus into different types of health. You can be, physically healthy. You can be biochemically healthy through, what you eat, the air you breathe, the water you drink, the medications that we take or don't take, the types of exercise you do, the types of foods you eat. So diversification is how health relates or is similar to your analogy of an investment. The concept of compound interest. I think it was Einstein that said that. I can't remember. one of the miracles of life, or one of the great miracles of life, is this idea of compound interest. Well, you can think of your health in exactly the same way, right? The earlier you start, so many things are benefiting, that when you continue investing in your health and you start to do things, it allows you to do things that are even more advanced in the health area because you've been doing it for so long. So your health builds upon other parts of your health. So your biochemical health, builds on your physical health, which builds on your mental health. And that's the compound interest of this. Your age, your longevity, your activity throughout daily life, your activity throughout your life. You stay more active longer into your life, right? So think of this same concept of compound interest as it relates to health as well. The benefits are available earlier in life when you start early. So when you start early on your health, right, you have these benefits health-wise that allow you to do a lot more when you're younger. And if something happens where you fall off for a few years, or like I said, you want to go to school for a few years, it's a dip in that investment. And think of it this way, right? Like when you start investing, if you dip into that investment early, so let's say you've only developed an investment strategy that for the last year or two, if you dip into that, that investment gets heavily affected because it's immature, right? It's young, it's not very big, so you take a few bucks out of it and then all of a sudden that investment's dropped. Whereas if you start early, or whereas you've been investing in your health for a long time, your ability to dip into it not only doesn't affect it much and doesn't result in a loss, or a permanent loss, but the loss is felt not as bad. So if you think of my life, when I went to chiropractic college, it was when I was 28 years old. So for the last 28 years, I'd been investing in my health. When I went to chiropractic college, I did not work out. I did not exercise, if at all. I maybe did it the odd time and when someone wanted to play a game or something, but absolutely nowhere near where I was. And so I did feel it. Felt the effects of it, but they were minor and short-lived. So that when I finished chiropractic college and I went back to playing soccer, even though it was amateur for fun, funny thing is I realized a couple things. First is I was able to get back to where I was within weeks. I was back as if I didn't even blink. And that was because the habitual patterns had been built in, and the physical effects, the physical benefits were still there. So always remember that the earlier you get started, the better. The other thing to remember is it's never too late to start, right? So a lot of people say, oh, I'm way too far gone. It's too old. It's going to take forever. Can't teach a dog new tricks. Well, I'm here to tell you absolutely can. And the moment you start is the moment that things start to change and the benefits are felt instantaneously, right? They're experienced instantaneously. So I want you to start thinking about your health this way. I want you to start looking at it as like look at it as a endless, unlimited possibility. Even starting now, the research is profound behind making changes in your health, and that this whole idea of compounding health is extremely powerful, because the difference between money and the human body is the human body is really, really adaptive and can compensate, right? And so the changes can be extremely profound in a very short amount of time. So in summary, move forward now. Make your changes now. It doesn't take a big, massive, huge shift. It just takes small steps for you to realize that, the moment you begin investing in your health, that the rewards are insurmountable and they're limitless. I hope that makes sense. I hope that was something that kind of you guys can resonate with and share with. And like I think I can't stress enough is that, no matter where you are on your health continuum, because it is that, it's individual and it's unique. Everyone's got their own journey and their own plan. You can do things fast, slow. There's absolute limitless amounts of opportunities and ways to apply this knowledge. So I just wanted to share that with you, that you're just like an investment. Your health is exactly the same as investment in money. Seek out the help. Get a financial advisor, a health advisor, a health coach, a financial coach, right? And if you do that, they have the experience and knowledge to take you from where you are to where you want to be, right? Last thing is, always remember that the number one component of all of your health, whether it's your financial picture, your health, your relationships, they all follow laws of the universe. In other words, you can't cheat these laws, right? You have to work with them, right? And it starts with your mind and your mindset. So continue joining us in these. I'll come on either later today or tomorrow and talk a little bit more. Later today, I do want to talk about stress and how stress affects your health. And then tomorrow, pre-Super Bowl, we're going to have Jessica on here, who can share her story or her journey on her health and how she's been able to tap into some pretty powerful mindset components to get her physical body and weight where she wants it to be. So join us with an interview with Jessica tomorrow. So like I said, thank you for joining me. Again, pose your questions and comments, and we will see you guys hopefully a little later. Be awesome today. Talk to you later. It's Dr. Kush. Bye.